You know what is insane about the whole high-value man thing that seems to have taken over certain men on the internet? The men selling it are not high value at all. It's weird that they're self-proclaiming that. They're recycling the exact same traits that make men emotionally dangerous, and then they call it masculinity. And women are standing there left wondering why everything hurts so much, why relationships and marriage and dating feels like a friggin' trap. Why the guys who seem so confident at the beginning always end up being the ones who tear you down. Now, I've made videos on the self-proclaimed nice guy who destroys you. This is about the confident guy who does the same thing but in different ways. And you don't realize it at first, but that's literally part of the strategy. You're not supposed to see who he is until you're already attached. You're not supposed to see what he is until it's too late. And to be clear, women don't pick these men. These men pick women using curated personas designed to hook you before the real version of him ever shows up. I'm Lisa Sonni, an expert in toxic and abusive relationships. I'm certified in abuse recovery, and I specialize in breaking trauma bonds. I expose the psychology behind abusive men that they don't want you to understand. Now, if you've dated this man, married this man, or you just want to avoid this man entirely, this video will teach you exactly what to look for. Subscribe if you want to finally make sense of what happened to you and rebuild without blaming yourself. Let's not gloss over something that's happening here, okay? The way that male dating culture has just turned the dark triad into like a blueprint. Narcissism, Machiavellian manipulation, psychopathic detachment, and sometimes even sadism dressed up as being a man. And you don't need a psychology degree to recognize it. You've seen it in real life. You've tried to understand it. You've tried to stay hopeful, right? You tried to be patient. The confusion you felt is not accidental. It's engineered. They're trying to destabilize you. Now, what's crazy is what men think is high value isn't what women think is high value. These men, right, the ones that I'm talking about, they actually really pander to other men. They're desperate for male approval. They're teaching them how to get away with not being healthy. And the scary part is really how well it works on women who want connection. They succeed not because women are gullible, but because women value connection, and these men weaponize that instinct. Women are not human lie detectors. Now, once you spot the pattern underneath all of this, the whole mask is going to start to slip. So let's start with the basics. The dark triad isn't actually a diagnosis. It's a cluster of personality traits that show up in psychology research. So narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. The expanded version also adds sadism. That's why I mentioned that. These traits overlap in men who prioritize control and superiority and dominance over things like connection, empathy, vulnerability. They don't want relationships, right? They want access and they want compliance, of course. They want to lead, right? They want somebody submissive. They want somebody who reacts, who cares, somebody who's willing to think that the problem is her. And they'll hide all of that incredibly well until you're in it too deep to even see it clearly. But here's where dating culture gets disturbing as hell. Men's dating spaces have turned each one of these traits into marketing. The algorithm boosts it nonstop because outrage, insecurity, and gender wars get clicks, not healthy connection. Take narcissism, the grandiosity, the entitlement, the need for admiration, right? Red pill men have turned that into the high value man persona. He's the prize. He's the catch. He wants princess treatment. He demands loyalty and devotion and sexual access, but he's going to give you the bare minimum. He calls it confidence or standards, and he's going to frame it as like indifference, right? Or he's got a boundary. He tells you he doesn't chase, right? He's too important for effort. It's not confidence, it's narcissism. And in real life, off the internet, it gives the ick. And then there's Machiavellianism, right? The cold strategy, manipulation, push-pull. This is where the game comes in, right? Things like negging, withholding validation, using psychology terms to control you, using your insecurity as leverage. He plays the long game, future fakes to lock you in, right? But then he pulls away and he destabilizes you. And all of those tactics that you've seen on TikTok that make your stomach drop, that's Machiavellianism repackaged as dating tips for men who don't know how to connect without deceiving someone. This feeds into the false belief that some of these red pill men have about what women want. They tell men women don't want you unless you deceive them. And then psychopathy, okay? I know people often think of serial killers when you hear that word, But the research version of psychopathy is emotional detachment, thrill-seeking, and a lack of remorse. So in a dating culture, this shows up as that cold, unreachable man, the guy that brags about being unbothered and kind of gives you nothing emotionally, but he calls that masculine strength, right? Men are not emotional. The guy who punishes you for having needs, demands sex no matter how he treats you. Women are told this is masculine. It's not. And then sadism, right? That's the part that we don't really want to believe exists in this, but we've all seen flashes of it. The jokes at your expense, public humiliation, the little tests that are really about dominance, the way he gets a kick out of making you jealous or insecure, right? Flirt with someone else and then be like, babe, you're so insecure. You did that. You wanted her to feel that way. The moment you see the look in his eyes, he knows he hurt you and he doesn't stop. That's it right there. Some men don't just lack empathy, right? They actually enjoy the reaction. Red pill culture has the nerve to package this as leadership. They collapse masculinity into domination and men eat it up because they're taught that dominance is proof of being a man. And hey, at first, these traits make men seem magnetic, right? They know how to perform confidence. They know how to mirror you. They know how to create intensity fast. They know how to build a fantasy, but none of it is actually for connection. It's for compliance or control, definitely for access. So if you're an empathetic woman who cares deeply, you want to understand, you give people grace, you're the perfect target. And it isn't because you're weak. You're actually strong in the exact ways that they can exploit. And every woman who has been in a relationship with a man like this, you know the cycle, right? Starts out charming and attentive, and then suddenly you're dealing with this emotional starvation that you can't even explain. You think what? He's just busy? You think you did something wrong? Maybe you think the problem is your attachment style or even his attachment style. Meanwhile, the guy's pulling strings. He's creating dependency, scripting your reactions. He's training you to tolerate less and less while he gives you nothing. And these men's dating coaches are teaching this out loud in plain sight. And once you've been pulled into that whole rhythm, that cycle, you start to lose track of what connection actually looks like for real. That's the part women never realize until much later, right? You look back and you see the pattern instead of the moments. Well, let's talk about how these traits actually play out in abusive relationships. Narcissistic traits show up in the love bombing, right? The intensity and that whole fantasy building. Machiavellian traits show up in the manipulation, push-pull, the lies, the gaslighting. Psychopathic traits show up when the coldness becomes terrifying. When nothing gets through, he sees you in pain and he feels nothing. Sadistic traits show up in the moments that he humiliates you or mocks you, dismisses you, or when he just provokes you to watch you react. And women stay because they're in a psychological cycle, not because they're choosing pain or choosing the bad guy. These men create a version of themselves that at first feels like home, but then they snatch it away and they punish you for wanting it back, right? You're trying to change me. You mean into the man you pretended to be? They make you believe that the mask is the real man and that the cruelty and abuse is your fault. And the part that most people never want to say out loud is that the men teaching these dating strategies to other men are doing it because they can't succeed in real relationships. People all tiptoe around that part like you should be listening to these losers, but I'm not doing that. Look at the men teaching these strategies. You've got mid-losers like Myron Gaines. He's built an empire telling women that they're the problem and they deserve less, while openly saying he has no interest in a committed relationship. Andrew Tate brags on camera about manipulating women and treating any emotional connection with women like a weakness. Kevin Samuels spent years lecturing women about being relationship ready. The guy's divorced twice from 2 super short marriages. His own wives couldn't stand him. This is the holy trinity of red pill hell dating culture. These men aren't helping anyone build healthy connection. They are taking ordinary men who want relationships and turning them into partners who destroy them. They're not improving men. They're ruining men. Look at all the men running out of the red pill dating culture saying that it almost ruined their lives. These guys don't have intimacy to offer. They don't have empathy. They don't have accountability. They only have tactics. They are marketing abuse tactics. These men end up alone and bitter and disconnected and more convinced than ever that it's women's fault. They sell those tactics as high value because if they ever had to form an equal relationship, they'd be exposed instantly and they hate it. It ruins men, but women are the ones that pay the price for this. Women end up in relationships where they feel confused and ashamed and anxious and desperate for clarity. Women end up thinking they just can't keep a man because that's the narrative too, right? It's her fault she can't keep him. But the truth is these men aren't emotionally equipped to be kept. They don't even want to be in a relationship in the first place. They just want sex. They want resources. Abusive men lie. They get a woman based on a lie. And then it's her fault that she didn't detect that he was lying. But you're also not allowed to assume that men are liars because then you're a misandrist. You're set up to fail. Women end up just blaming themselves when the entire blueprint is designed to destabilize them, right? The culture cost is massive. We're normalizing contempt for women, right? This is just the normal thing. We're validating emotional neglect. We're glamorizing manipulation. We're calling abuse masculinity. That's not true. And women are walking into situations that were built to harm them. And then we say, hey, it's your job to fix that. This is the kind of relationship that you've been in, or if you suspect that you're still tangled up in something like this is the work that I do. I help women break free of this and never get into it again. Book a session with me and I'm going to help you rebuild the part of yourself that he tried to take. And if this part hit you, comment, subscribe, and share it because more women need to know that these high-value mid-loser men are exactly that.